On this episode of the I2I Forum podcast, Vish Patel, a deeply experienced recruiter in the area of change and transformation management. He's going to be talking to us about why day rates may have flattened out across the change management profession, how he can work with you as a recruiter to help you write more accurate job descriptions that get the person you need for the job at hand, the changes that he sees necessary in the change management industry to not only help it grow, but also increase its impact. All this and more on this episode of the I2I Forum podcast. Good morning, Vish. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Thank you so much for joining me and having this chat today. Before we get into it, I don't want to race into all the content. Just if you wanted to share a bit about yourself with people who are watching and listening.
Yeah, that's cool. So I specialize in headhunting or recruitment within business change and transformation. I've worked across multiple markets, across the FTSE 100 for around 10 years, specializing in building out high-performing change teams to affect change across HR, finance, procurement, supply chain, typically focused around people change, but also looking at technology change.
So what made you get into recruitment? I mean, what's the history? What's the backstory there?
So I fell into recruitment, really. I was working in banks. I ran a few businesses before I got into recruitment. So that kind of gave me some time and experience within the world of how to work with people and run P&Ls, but also it aligned to recruitment very well, I think, because within recruitment, you have to build your own desk, and that's sort of winning clients, but also building strong relationships. So that's why I believe it suited me very well.
Yeah. Because when we were speaking before, because I had the opportunity, I actually found you on LinkedIn as a result of a couple articles and posts that you made. And we were talking about job descriptions initially, because you had put a post out there kind of getting people's ideas on, is this an accurate job description? What prompted you to do that?
I think that there's a big disconnect between what people see as a change manager and what the recruitment side of the world think of that as well. So I think it's good to define each role and the core purposes of each role: change management, business analysis, project management, program management, CTO, transformation director, and put that out there so it's clear for people to understand this is the core responsibilities and roles of this person within change and transformation. I didn't really see much of that out there, and it was very prominent in conversations I was having with clients.
Fully agree. In fact, a former colleague and I consider a friend of mine, Jody Randall, he has a hashtag so not change. So hashtag so not change. And he's been speaking about that for a while. And I think from a change perspective, it's funny how we're, as a discipline, as a profession, often not reflecting and using our own tools and techniques on ourselves. Because I don't feel that there's a clear definition of what a change manager is supposed to do. And so you doing this is actually what triggered me. In fact, a conversation I had with some senior directors in a major corporation, I said to them, okay, if you have a project manager at $50K a year and you have a project manager at $150 a year, what are 4 things that you expect from them no matter what they're being paid? And everybody came up with plan, risk log, status report, all those things. So then I said to them, now a change manager at 50 or 150, what would you expect from them? And there was silence. And a couple of people who know some things, maybe one document. So I don't actually think that there's a clear industry defined, like this is the minimum. There's people's own perception. And I think what you did was actually test that out. So what kind of feedback did you get from that?
I think in the main, it was quite positive. I think a lot of the feedback was around, it was refreshing for people to read a post like that, because it makes people understand that recruitment can be good and you can find these people if you're looking for the right things. And also wider reach, sort of speaking to some clients around writing job descriptions for them, helping them with defining what roles should be, the salaries for those roles, that kind of stuff came off the back of it as well. I think the main reason why I posted it was because, one, no one is posting stuff like that, which they should be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a recruiter. If I don't know the core values of a BA, a change manager, a project manager, a program manager, then how can a client expect me to recruit it for them? The client has these grand ideas of, maybe we want to do a £200 million SAP transformation. And we need to get these people in, which is great. But I can't be effective in my job if I don't know what those roles are,
Well, actually, you brought something up too, because you'd mentioned that you actually help clients write the job descriptions, because I feel there is an education part that's needed on part of the clients. And a lot of them in this position of, well, I'm recruiting, I'm going to tell you what I need. And you have this view of, that might be what you need, but your budget for what you need isn't aligned. Let me understand your challenge. Well, hey, better than that. How do you approach it when you're trying to help them write that job description?
Well, it's a difficult conversation, because when a role is being spoken about, it has typically gone through a lot of stage gates to get to the point of it being signed off, right? We both know that. And then they come and say, Vish, right, I need a project manager for this IT implementation that we're doing, right?
Yeah.
For example, and you look at it and it's like, they don't need a project manager. They need a change manager. They need someone to do the pre-change or the business readiness, let's say, or they need someone to do the people change, or they need someone to do the IT enabled change, not the project delivery. But all of those change functions I just mentioned, processes or roles, are badged as a project manager for some people, for the wider community, actually.
Yes.
So I will then say, no, you need to go back. You need a change manager to do this, and this. This is the job description I think would fit that role. You might need to go and do a business case and get the right skill set in.
So this actually is a recurring theme in a number of conversations I've been having, is having the right people involved at the right time. And many of the people in the positions of power, authority, or, the ones who are calling the shots, often feel these people don't need to be part of this discussion, whereas they're not the deep subject matter experts. So what ends up happening is they have a predefined notion of what good looks like that doesn't line up with reality. And I think a lot of recruiters, to a degree, I've seen situations where they're like, I want this person, and they say it's a change manager. They're really trying to recruit a BA. So you end up finding a BA, and they're saying, okay, I'm going to pay, let's say, $650 a day, but BAs aren't paid $650 a day. So the recruiters, less scrupulous, or unscrupulous kind of people, end up trying to keep that 200 for themselves on a daily basis, which this is about integrity, really.
It destroys the market, because what you can do is, you're right. So an example of that is, you'll get a charge rate from a client to say, this, you can bill me £800 and I need you to go and find me X. When really they don't need to spend the £800, because the level and the skill set that they require costs £500 or £600, right? But the recruiter, in some cases, will just take the full charge rate and then have the £300 a day as their margin, and then that destroys the market, because then you lose space in change and transformation, because you're paying over the odds for a skill set that's not required, that's not in the position to deliver through no fault of their own, because the recruiter has pitched that role as a BA, but really it's a change lead, so that does happen, and that needs to stop. And that's why you go back to them and say, look, no, hold on a minute. You need this is the market rate analysis based on 10 years of work in this space is this cost, right? So you need to go and get this cost. It might be more, it might be less, but it's honest, it's true to what they need, as opposed to being instructed and not having the advice around it,
Yeah. And that's what I like about the best recruiter. I've been around doing this for nearly 30 years now, right? And people that I like working with the most are not transactional, they're relational. And to me, yes, you can do that on a transaction, but when they end up releasing this BA 2 months in, they no longer see that person as a credible source. But some of them are like, well, I'm going to move from agency to agency. I made a big win. I got cash in my pocket and nobody's going to know about it.
Yeah.
But what I'm finding is people don't recognize that this is a lot smaller world than they would imagine. You know what I mean? And people talk. So the way you approach it relationally, I think, is really important. I mean, how much time do you typically spend with a new client when they say, well, we have this role? Do you get to spend time with them at all?
Yeah, so we'll meet them face to face. We'll have a number of meetings prior to me engaging with them for recruitment activity. You know, if someone's kicking off a big ERP implementation, I'll try to meet maybe if they have an implementation partner, I'll try to meet them. I'll try to meet the client and have them all in the room to understand exactly what they need from a recruitment perspective. And then we'll go and do the recruitment. You know, the recruitment is now 10 years in, slightly easier because I have an established network of 10,000 people that are trusted, that I know, that I've worked with in the past. Or I think it's about defining the roles properly and getting the right people in at the right time through the full transformation. At different stages, as you know, you need different people.
Yeah.
And that is sometimes where clients struggle a little bit, you know?
That's really important because it is something that I do some studying on this approach from a guy named Adizes, Adizes. And he says at different points in the organizational life cycle of an organization, of specifically a corporation, that they need different types of leaders. In the same way I see it in where they are in change. If there's absolutely no change been done at all, it's a different kind of personality as well as skill set, and going through that. My question is, how do we educate not only other recruiters, but the customers? I mean, because like you and I are individuals and we have this conversation, and when I speak to people, everybody says, it makes sense. But I mean, what are your thoughts? How can we collectively maybe start to educate more clients?
I think it's about being out there and posting your thoughts. People are scared to say what they truly believe. And a lot of people, there's some great minds in transformation and change that don't quite have the confidence to put out the simplistic definitions of these things, right? Which is what I'm doing. I'm just simplifying it into an easy way to digest it. That is literally all I'm doing. And I think other people are probably better placed than me to do that are actually in the change. So that's one thing. Posting on LinkedIn is a good way to sort of get the narrative out there, but also changing the narrative in our day-to-day discussions. I speak to hundreds of candidates every week. I speak to hundreds of clients every year. Changing the narrative and saying, stop, this is what I think you need, instead of that, is something that we should all be doing, really.
I think collectively that's where the power comes, because a number of people who don't speak up are maybe doing it to chase the dollar, but I think they're actually impacting the day rates for themselves and for the people delivering the services. Because another point that you actually highlighted was about the day rates and the movement of day rates for change managers over the last 10 years. So what were some of the findings that you've discovered?
I think that what's happened is that the day rates have stagnated, so they haven't evolved, is the main theme of that post. And as inflation and cost of services goes up, the day rates have stayed the same largely. And I think one of the reasons for that is that the dilution of rates and the missed cost of roles across a transformation program. So companies might spend millions or hundreds of millions on the wrong resource.
Yeah.
And then the perception of transformation is then it's too expensive.
Yes.
But it's if that's the perception, then it's never going to evolve, because it's like, it's already really expensive and it's not working. So why is it going to evolve? But really, that's not what should happen, because if we had, like you said, the right people in the right place at the right time, which as a recruiter, that's what I should be doing.
Yes.
Then it isn't going to cost lots, because that cost is going to come back tenfold over the next 5-10 years if you get it right at the beginning.
And I think that's a challenge. There's so many moving parts. And this is why I'm saying, if the change management discipline were to look at change management as a change management program, we would be getting some of the leaders of ProSci, APMG, blah, blah, in the room to say, okay, you're teaching people project management. You need to introduce more change into that curriculum when you're certifying them. You're teaching people change management. You need to teach them more about delivery. Because what the challenge I'm seeing here is that we've become an echo chamber in the sense of my observation, just kind of because I'm to a degree dabbling on the edges, but everybody's like, oh, this method, this framework, this. And some of them are oversimplifying it. And they don't have the deep knowledge like you have behind it. So you have 10 years worth of expertise in a network. Many of these people are just trying to make a name for themselves, following some formula of building some sales funnel and then looking at grabbing the cash. You have then transactional recruiters who are just looking for what can I sell for, the highest price to them and get the lowest cost to get this person in through the door for 3 months. You have change managers who, some of them aren't speaking up, in my opinion, because they have an imposter syndrome, not because they don't know, but just because, like you said, it's that kind of, it's a new field and nobody's saying this. And if nobody's saying it, am I going to be the outlier and end up not being accepted for roles?
Yeah.
So people aren't calling out the elephant in the room. In fact, I'll flash it up. I'm going to insert that into I'm calling it elephants in emperor's clothes because people aren't calling out the elephant in the room. When you say change, what do you mean by change? I've been interviewed for roles where people have thought it was like IT change. What would you go through the cab? I mean, these are senior people interviewing me, right? When you say transformation, because typically I don't, in my humble opinion, a transformation role is not a contractor. A transformation role, because transformation will take years. It's similar to me like the architect for a park. They're never going to see those oak trees, but they're going to be there, going to plan it for a long time. Whereas a change manager is a gardener making some beautiful garden within that park. And the skill sets are different. But a lot of people want to throw out a buzzword, change and transformation. So if you're really transformation, wouldn't it be that you should be in roles for at least 3 years per role? It's not going to be a year. Do you see what I'm saying? You can't do a transformation in a year. So that's why, to me, I focus myself on being an implementation person. But what are your thoughts on these definitions?
I think you're right. I think in the main, I think that there is an argument for setting the scope and writing the playbook for change. And I think there are people that can do that, and that can work effectively, where you coach for an interim period of time, a vast bunch of stakeholders within a business as a change specialist and charge a day rate. And that part of it is brilliant. Like if, for example, if you went in and, were head of change, but you were looking at every area of the business to then implement the pre-change, the readiness, right? How do we change? What do we do? What are the principles of change? That could take a year. That could take 6 months. It wouldn't take 3 years, but they would have the playbook. And what happens sometimes is that strategy and that scoping exercise doesn't actually get put into the business. So that's where you probably are talking about the 3-4 years. You would, right, we've done this now. We need to go and do that. So there is that. But then I think change, you're right in the fact that it takes time because it's changing people's way of working, really, in the nuts and bolts of it. You can say IT enabled change, you can say behavioral change, you can say business readiness, you can say all of these things, but it is really just changing the way people work and showing value in the way that this new way of working is going to be more valuable to you as a person and the wider business. But to you, this is going to be really valuable. Like it's going to make your life better. It's going to make your work life better. And that's really the change. But that's so hard to do because humans are complex, right? So it's difficult.
Because I've been a leadership coach and a personal coach for people. And I've, had people in my life that are personal coaches as far as people making life changes. And we're working with these people for months to a year. On some of them just on their diet. Some of them just on quitting smoking, although it can be something that can be instantaneous. And that's one individual. So when you collectively put this culture and dynamic of hundreds or even, just 20, 30 people together. And that's the reason why I use an approach called incremental change management. Because I prove to the people using the tools of change management, resistance mapping, communications, etc.
Yeah.
Let's get your team. Every formal meeting, it's one of the examples, must have an agenda. And let's see how that works out. And they typically find out within 6 weeks, we're not ready for change, even on this level, let alone an ERP. So this is why I believe that part of this needs to be, I work with a gentleman named David Wilkinson, who's the editor-in-chief for the Oxford Review. And he used to work for the police force. And what they recognized is you can't have external people try to change a strong culture. You have to find some of the elite influencers and train and develop them over months to a year to equip and empower them to lead the change. Because you can't go to an organization where people have been there 20 years. Hi, I'm the new transformation and change manager. I'm going to be with you for the next 6 months, and you're going to change the way you've been working for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
Yeah,
You know.
I agree. I think it's harder than that. And I think people love the concept of change. That's why they spend so much money on change. It feels like you're doing a good thing. It's like, right, I'm CEO. I've spent 100 million on change. That's done now. It's like, no, it's not done.
There's something interesting too, because in the article, when I read the article, and went back and forth with you on some chat, we'd mentioned the fact that like accountants, yeah?
Yeah.
So like my accountancy fees have jumped from about what you had mentioned in there too, about £600-700 a year to do my limited company accounts plus my personal return, right? To now about £1,500 a year, right?
Yeah.
And yet, in that time, in the last 10 years, we've had making tax digital, which means everything has to be going through software, right? Which means that there's no longer bookkeeping where they were sitting going through my receipts. I'm scanning the receipt. HubDoc is taking it in. It's allocating it, waiting for a semi-automated process to do the reconciliation, put it through my books, press a button to file, everything. So the work for the accountant has reduced. The physical work is reduced. But their rates have doubled. And yet I'm seeing job descriptions within change and transformation where they're now expecting unicorns to be a comms lead, training lead, project manager, and change with no direct reports in 6 months with an opportunity to extend and the same day rate inside IR. So what do we do? I think part of it for me is about us demonstrating the tangible value as well as the experiential. But what are your thoughts?
No, I think that it's tough because the evolution hasn't necessarily gone the right way with regards to salary increases based on the value of change. That's not happened, right? So and then IR35 is coming, which is a government legislation, which makes it even harder to find people within change or contractors generally that are happy and driven to do their work. So you lose confidence when the state is saying, no, we're going to tax you on this without you're not going to get any extra benefits or anything. We're just going to tax you more, basically.
Yeah.
And there's no evolution in the pay, right? The pay is not going up like a perm job would typically go up. So, yeah, I just think that there's a lot to do around that, and it's a tough one, really.
Yeah. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to invite you, because I want to arrange this. There's some people that I've been linking with on LinkedIn. I'd like to have a wider panel discussion, maybe like a live stream on LinkedIn. And I'd like to invite you to be on that panel because I think I want to see recruiters as well as change, transformation, and clients. Because I think part of the challenge, and this isn't fully proven, although I'm working with people at the Oxford Review to kind of quantify this, I don't feel change management as a discipline and a profession have proven themselves as a separate discipline and profession, and also not given the tangible value. And I don't mean, because I've done projects and programs and I can show the value. That's the way I work because I'm a former project manager. But my action today resulted in this specifically, because a lot of them I feel are now moving from the fact that they're saying, well, you know what? If I just use my training person well, my comms person well, and my project manager person well, I don't need a separate role called change, which to some degree could be true because there are organizations, remember, before we had formal change managers, 20 years ago,
Mm.
Were people even hiring change managers? No. And yet let's look at Y2K. Huge change, huge transformation for organizations. How many global change and transformation managers were there then? So for some people that I'm speaking to in C-level positions, change management transformation is a bit of a grift. Yeah? This new role with no direct reports, telling everybody this experiential thing we're going to create, but the organizations are spending 7 figures on this and still missing a go live. And a lot of it, from my experience, is because I'm not suitably positioned in the organization to pull the levers I need to pull to really make this work at the pace. Yeah. So I think there's a wider discussion that needs to happen. I mean, But from your perspective, I mean, what are some of the things that you think that the change profession can do to help itself out right now?
I just think to quantify and sponsor in the right way, I think that's in a nutshell. If you've got the right reporting lines set up for the change to be enabled, it can work. It's
Yes, I agree.
That doesn't really seem to be happening internally very often. And then again, it goes back to changing the narrative around from a recruitment perspective. When I'm speaking to those decision makers who have done all of that scoping and then come to me for the recruitment, it's almost a bit too late. It's like, Vish, I just need you to recruit these things. And it's like, well, you know, I'm more invested than just a recruiter. So it's like, how have you come to these conclusions for these roles? Because to me, it doesn't really make sense. But if you do get the right sponsor, the right reporting lines for that transformation director or that head of change, because change starts at the top and then is walked down. If it's not there at the top, it won't affect change through the organization. So if you've got that reporting structure right, brilliant. You know, it will work and it can work properly. So that's what I think we need to do, and just keep talking about that, and that will then start making change more tangible. You talked about reporting change. I think that's something that needs to happen. It needs to be logged in some way, whether it's IT enabled change or people change. I think it still can, even people change can be logged. It's like, you know, you've been here 6 months. What are people's perceptions of you? Have people changed the way that they touch their computer? Have they changed that? Have you done that?
Because there are a lot of tools out there, but in some cases, my grandmother would say, a fool with a tool is still a fool, right? So you have a bunch of people who think that they can throw a tool at it, whereas I feel that change is an art rooted in science. It's somebody coming with a decade's worth of experience, understanding the methodologies, the framework, but also looking at this organization and knowing how to interpret it for this organization. So what metrics do we need as a starter for 10? How can I then convince and influence people to understand the importance of change as a part of the way we work, kind of thing? And I think this is the reason why my approach through implementation mastery, through incremental change management, is finding a group of 5 people, specific roles that I've identified, working with them on projects they're already doing, coaching them for a 2-week period, and then mentoring them for 6 months to a year. I think that's how I think we can start to influence within the organizations experientially and giving them the tangible metrics. But like you said, unfortunately, a lot of people are kind of doing this as okay, tell me what your thoughts are on this. Johnny and Mike are playing golf. Johnny has a company. I'm going to be doing an ERP next year. It's a big thing we need to do. I'm doing a digital transformation. But what do? I called one of the big 4. The big 4 come in, they spend 7 figures on them, and they tell them about the theory of change and what they need to do a plan. They're like, well, we've spent 7 figures now. We can't necessarily do this, so let's get some contractors to lead the change. That's another 6 months, another maybe £500,000, right? Now they're going like, this feels good, but I'm not seeing a shift on the numbers, and I can't attribute the benefit directly to me paying this $500,000. Maybe we need to hire some permanents. But the permanent people that we're making, that are willing on the market, we can't afford them. So let's hire some other people and try and do it internally. They spend another half a year, another $250,000. They're like, it still isn't really moving because these people are too new and we don't have another year. What do we need to do? Call the big 4. That's the cycle and the pattern that I'm seeing, and I've seen over the last 5 to 10 years. And I think part of it is like I was talking about educating people, both clients, recruiters, and the change management profession, seeing ourselves as a profession to kind of unite and say, let's agree these common things. Thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that is a really good approach. It's a very complicated approach, but it's really good. And it's a way to really make make change tangible, and make it recognized in the marketplace. It's getting consultancies in to run big change projects is probably not the best thing to do, even though a lot of people do it. The best thing to do really is to save that money, to get together a team of really, really experienced change people. Don't just hand the change over to them either. Don't just say, here's 200 million, guys, go and do it. Be there as leaders of the business and really embrace that investment and be there with your eyes wide open and understand it, and get a team together that understand change, that will be in charge of that budget, that has got the senior leadership, whoever's that CEO, CIO, CFO, whoever it is, on that board of change as well. Because of what's happening is senior leadership are just shipping off money to Big Four and then expect Big Four to just come in because they've got the marketing and the branding and expect everyone to just trust them. And they don't. It's gone. That does not happen anymore. There's just, the amount of times you hear, I've got Deloitte or PwC in or whatever, it's just like, we'll just go through this process for 12 months and then it won't work. And then, they'll do something else. Whereas if you've got an embedded team that's got the sponsorship there on the board of change, that'll work. And that's what needs to happen. And it's important change because they throw 200 million at it, but no one's there. It's like, here you go, you do it.
And the thing is, some of it is, I believe, part of the, for lack of a better word, insecurity of the leaders. They're like, I know this should work. I know this can work. I've had a coach and they've taken me through this journey. I need to trust somebody to take my organization and my teams through that. And so they trust the big names because it's hard to trust the little guys. So the reason I'm having this conversation with you is it hopefully enough conversation with the little guys. The big guys will pick this up and they can start to maybe lead on this because it's going to help them in the long run too, as well as the profession, the industry, and ultimately the businesses. People we serve are going to understand tangibly in metrics how it benefited them, but experientially, my God, I actually enjoy doing my work now because I feel heard. I understand what's going on and I feel valued. And those are things that are hard to put the pound and pence, dollars and cents on.
For sure.
When you have the conversations. And even more so, a number of points coming from people who are not in C-level positions who talk about, well, it'll only be £1 million. And I'm like, do you have any idea what that is to somebody on the C-level? They've got all these pressures, shareholders, leadership that want results for this quarter, that are pounds and pence, dollars and cents, hearts and minds, even if it's only of a handful of people, because they've got to get these numbers. So to throw these things at them without having metrics, without having tangible things as well as experiential, I think is the reason why the rates have flattened out. But with that, I'm going to wrap up now because we're at the 30-odd minute mark. So Vish, any last thoughts that you want to share, at least from your perspective, on what really distinguishes you and the way you work relationally as a recruiter than the rest of the industry?
What's obviously different compared to every other recruiter, I think, is that I have a good, solid understanding of the roles and the breadth of work that goes into these positions within change and transformation. I've got a massive network that I've either worked with before in the past on a consultancy advisory basis for positions, as in writing job descriptions, doing market rate analysis on salaries, day rates and perm. So I've done that for years and years and years. I've also got, a massive network of 9,000 people that in the main really understand change and get it. And that's the difference. It takes time to build that, and it takes time to be confident enough to advise a client to say, no, man, this isn't right. This is what you need. And this is the cost of it. As opposed to saying, right, here's the Vish, go and find me a project manager. It's like, no, mister, you need a change manager here. Or you need a BA here. You need a team of BAs. They need to do the as is to be. You need to then find the change person. Or this is hypercare now. So you need someone to come in and to do that change to make sure that the adoption is there, you know. So it's not just about chuck me a position and then I'll go and fill it for you. It's deeper than that.
And that's what I've picked up in our conversations. And again, I'm looking forward to speaking with you more, working with you more in the future. And I really appreciate you taking the time out to share this conversation with me and with a wider audience.
Thank you very much. No, it's been great. It's been good to talk about it.
Thank you.